Welcome one, welcome all to another developer interview here on the Xbox Expansion Pass. Today I am joined by Tommaso De Benetti of Cornfox Bros here to discuss the just released on Xbox Oceanhorn 2. I am your host, Luke Lohr, the Insipid Ghost. Tommaso, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so appreciative that you are here, that we get to talk Oceanhorn 2. Before we do, though, I would love to know a little bit about Cornfox, the studio behind Oceanhorn 2.
All right, so the studio was born in 2010, if I remember correctly. I joined, I think at this point must be 4 years ago. I have to check on my LinkedIn, I don't remember. In the beginning, I joined as a freelancer, and then I moved to full employee just last year. But I was basically working full-time just as an external, which doesn't mean much because I was here at the office every day. So I've been involved with a lot of Oceanhorn 2, not from the beginning, but I saw quite a lot of it during development. The company started thanks to the three founders, Heikki, Jukka, and Antti. All three are Finns. You can guess from the names. And they wanted to run their own gaming companies. They've been working in gaming companies before. The first works of the company were kind of works for hire. They've been doing some games together with Remedy, for example. One of them is called Death Rally. It's actually a driving game. And then, well, of course, the tree and the name of the company comes from them because two of them are brothers. The other one, surname, if you try to translate it into English, sounds a bit like Fox. So they kind of put together the translation, and Cornfox came out. They wanted to do their own thing. Heikki, which is the creative director, is very passionate about RPG, especially JRPGs. So Oceanhorn was the first title they've been working on together as original title, and that would be the first Oceanhorn Monster of Uncharted Seas, which came out. I think the first release was 2013, so 3 years after they were founded. And then, that came out on many platforms. So the first release was on iOS as a premium title, and then it came out also for Steam, various consoles. I think it's on PS4, PS Vita. I believe it's also on Xbox. Probably you know it better.
It is.
Yeah, I've been playing it. Like it is on so many platforms that usually when I played it on a couple of them, I just don't check the others because it's always the same game. It came out. That title also came out on Android. And then while the portings were happening, because it was exclusive for iOS for a few years, the team started to work on Oceanhorn 2. I came in maybe 2 years after the starting of development, perhaps maybe 3 years almost. It took 5 years to get it done, so it was a long. It took a long time to get it done. But the team, when I came in, I think there were. I was number 5, maybe 6, maybe, and now we are up to 9, I want to say.
Small team.
Yeah, it's a very small team. Yeah. So, sometimes when people complain like, "Oh, why does it take so long to get the stuff?" It's because we're just few people, and we need to do everything. So of course we have some collaborator. The portings have been done together with FTG Entertainment, which is our publisher, and we've been using the help of some porting companies, but in general everything is done from this office. And when you have such a small team, it takes time to get stuff done. Like if you think that, I don't know, to make an Assassin's Creed, that they have teams that are probably in the 300-400s at this point. So yeah, with 9 people it takes a bit longer.
Yeah, I can imagine. That size team means you guys must work really closely together. You
Yeah,
were
we
telling
are
me,
all in the same room pretty much.
yeah, and you were saying to me prior to recording that like you have a title, but you do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's true. Because when I joined the company, I was mostly taking care of the marketing side of things. But then, because Oceanhorn 2, ha- well, it was first released on Apple Arcade, and then I took care of every release for the updates, right? But then, for a long time, there hasn't been many news related to the game, except now that it's out on console, so we can
Hmm.
speak about it again. But there's a lot of secret stuff going on here, and if you're the marketing person and you cannot talk about the games, you need to find something else to do. So
Hmm.
I am actually doing also other things which are related to the new projects that we are working on.
Gotcha. Makes good sense. Makes good sense. And when you're in close quarters, probably not too hard to lean back and say, "Hey, help! What do I do?" You know.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Oceanhorn 2 is but an incredible sequel, but in timeline purposes, it's very much a prequel to the first Oceanhorn, and it's the third game in the Oceanhorn series. Is that right?
It was the second when it was released, because okay, so I have to admit that the timeline of the Oceanhorn is a bit messed. Uh, the first one we released, Oceanhorn, Monster of Uncharted Seas, it's actually the last one in the chronology.
Okay.
Oceanhorn 2, it's the first in the chronology. So if you haven't played the other one, you can start with this, and it's fine, because this is the beginning of the story. So you
Hmm.
don't need to know anything about Oceanhorn to enjoy this title. And actually, it might make some things that happen in the Oceanhorn Monster of Uncharted Seas more clear, when because the idea was like, okay, let's explain how we got to this point. And
Hmm.
then in between, we released also on Apple Arcade another Oceanhorn title. It was more of a side title called Oceanhorn Chronos Dungeon.
Hmm.
And that one is more or less between the two.
Hmm.
So you need to kind of jump around a bit with the timeline to understand everything that's going on.
Hmm.
Um, Chronos Dungeon is a bit more like it has a bit less lore than the other two. It's also a different kind of game. It's more like a procedural dungeon crawler,
Hmm.
which you are supposed to play beginning to end in one run. It takes a few hours, and you can play it single player, or you can play it with friends. So it's also multiplayer, local multiplayer. And there are connections with the other titles, and Easter eggs for the people who have played the other titles, but it's not necessary to understand everything. That said, everything that happens there is also canon in the story. So we are trying to, as much as possible, to tie all the titles together, so people that play everything can draw their own conclusions about, okay, this guy's this, and then it comes back there, and
Hmm.
then there's this thing. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do.
So Chronos Dungeon's this dungeon crawler, but Oceanhorn's 1 and 2 proper, uh, they're very much, and I know I'm not the only one to make this comparison, but very much they feel an homage to the Legend of Zelda series, but differently as well. Can you talk a little bit
Yeah,
about that?
so I mean, it's really not a secret. If you go and dig into our blog, you will see some older articles, even go into details uh, on the titles that have inspired the Oceanhorn saga. Zelda is, of course, a big one. Then there are certain episodes of Final Fantasy, um other stuff from Dragon Quest, Secret of Mana, the whole series, and Mystic Quest. Like there's a bunch of stuff that some titles I didn't even know when I joined the company, and then the guys been showing me. There are also some more esoteric titles. So there was this title that came out for Wii called The Last Story, which our creative director likes a lot, and there are some inspirations from that. But yeah, I would say that if you want to draw a direct comparison, the first Oceanhorn, monster of Uncharted Seas, it's more of a link to the past, even though the view is isometric.
Hmm.
And Oceanhorn 2, it's perhaps closer to some episodes of Zelda, such as Skyward Sword. Um, some people, when it came out, kind of compared it to Breath of the Wild, but I don't think it does justice to neither of those titles, because
Hmm.
Breath of the Wild, like, I mean, the main point there is that you have this big open world, and that's not what we have in the game.
Hmm.
It is more of a classic Zelda experience, and I think Skyward Sword could be the closest
Hmm.
match to that kind of experience.
I would say the same. I think the Breath of the Wild comparisons were largely due to release timing as well
Yeah,
as the color
like, I think
palette.
Zelda has been a series that has been running for so long that some people just don't know the older titles,
Could be that,
so
yeah.
they just see that one. And like I even saw some comparison now with Tears of the Kingdom, but definitely, well, while we were developing Oceanhorn 2, Tears of the Kingdom wasn't even on the horizon.
Hmm.
And it is funny because there are some similarities. There are sky islands in both titles. So I
Hmm.
wonder if actually the Japanese team of Zelda has been seeing Oceanhorn is like, oh, this is a good idea. Let's put it in. So there are some things that are kind of funny to see. Is like, hey, this is the same stuff we have, just now it's in a major Zelda game. So
Hmm.
there are mutual inspirations, I would say, but of course, I wouldn't dare to say that Zelda's been copying from us, because that wouldn't be completely fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think it's fair to say personally that Oceanhorns 1 and 2 were benchmark titles for iOS. Oceanhorn 2 was initially an Apple Arcade exclusive. Certainly, at least to my eye, technically two of the most impressive games at their time of release on mobile platforms like iOS. And now, the reason we're talking is it's been translated to uh, Series S and X as well as PlayStation and PC. Uh, the reception that you guys get on mobile via Apple Arcade, iOS, I would think is different than the reception you get in the console space. No? Yes?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, because of course, when we are making the game, we are trying to think about all possible control schemes and things that would work on mobile but wouldn't work with a controller, or some aspects that the mobile audience would be happy with, and maybe the console audience wouldn't be happy with. So it's a difficult balance, because first of all, the title came out on Apple Arcade. We knew it was uh, going to stay on Apple Arcade for a long time. So that is our first market in a way, and we
Hmm.
need to make sure that the game plays well with touchscreen, which is not easy, because the moment you have complex controls with touchscreens, it can get pretty tricky fast.
Hmm.
And there are things that you cannot do that easily. Like, I don't think that a title like Tears of the Kingdom would work super well on a touch screen, because it is so complicated. I think it uses all the buttons on a Switch controller. So when you don't have that, it becomes a bit tricky. So you need to strike a balance between what would work everywhere,
Hmm.
and that's what we're trying to do. I think, as you were saying, the title was really impressive. It's still very impressive technically on mobile, and I think Apple knew it, because it's been showcased many times on their reels, and I think we also had a couple of advertisement for Apple Arcade where Hero is part of the advertisement. So I think they really believed in the title, and we are super glad for the kind of marketing we got from there, because you have one of the most successful companies in the world that is basically pushing your game, and
Hmm.
a lot of people get to see it. And I think that's what some people don't understand when they, because of course Apple Arcade being a subscription service, even though it's fairly cheap for what it offers, you need to think, okay, what is the kind of audience that would go with that kind of service? And well,
Hmm.
now I'm a new father. I have a 1 year old kid. I'm
Congrats.
thinking that as soon as he becomes a bit older, Apple Arcade would be a great investment because you have a bunch of games, no advertisement, that they cannot accidentally spend money on it.
Hmm.
Uh, they don't have any kind of mechanic that is exploitative. The quality is very high for what you pay. And we're happy to be in a service that is so family friendly in a way.
Hmm.
That said, we are also gamers. I have all consoles, I think, at this point. So it's not really a matter of, oh, we are Apple fanboys. I like gaming in general. So
Hmm.
we want to play everywhere, and if we can get the game somewhere else, we will. But of course, then there are also some deals that are made behind curtains that we're not necessarily sharing with everybody.
Hmm.
But I think I'm getting a bit lost here. I
Well.
just wanted to say that sometimes people are like, okay, why do you don't release it for this platform or that platform, or
Mhm.
why does it take so long? It's because we have our reasons and we know what we're doing. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's the main point.
I don't think it's such a foreign concept, particularly to the Xbox community, that releasing into a subscription service or having a timed window of exclusivity can help game development or help teams get across the finish line. I don't mean this specific to Oceanhorn, but in general, we've heard of people taking a Game Pass deal for guaranteed money to get across the finish line to recoup costs, and I think that's uh, now pretty commonly understood. Would you agree
Yeah,
with?
well, I'm a Game Pass user, so I know exactly what you mean. I don't know exactly how the deals are made for Game Pass. For my understanding, interviews with Phil Spencer, etc., um, it's made case by case. So every
Mhm.
game has a bit of a different deal.
Mhm.
Uh, the deals on Apple Arcade are more or less the same in the sense that we don't know what other developers' or deals are.
Mhm.
We just know ours, and
Mhm.
well, it's been a good deal. So why not? Like,
Sure.
especially because when it comes to a company that has 9 employees, we will never be able to put the marketing money behind pushing a game out that Apple can put if they really believe in a game.
Mhm.
If you check like big releases like, I don't know, The Last of Us, or the Horizon, or any game on Xbox, the Gears of War, whatever, Halo, half of the development money usually, it's you need to put half on top of the development money for what the marketing costs,
Mm.
and it's just not feasible when you have a small
Right.
company. So this kind of deals, a lot of people maybe even make deals with Epic, for similar with similar arrangements. It's because it just helps them get the game out there, and then maybe in time it will come to other platforms. It's not a given, but there is always usually that possibility that at some point you might be able to put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand that maybe people don't always want a subscription, um, but for us that was the most viable way to get the game out and make it as we wanted, and also make sure that maybe at some point we could bring it somewhere else.
And I think that's exactly where from the outside looking in, it seems like that's what you guys did because Apple Arcade in 2019, a year later and change, Nintendo Switch, and now PS5, Series S and X, PC. Now more people have access to Oceanhorn 2 than ever did, which to me is pretty
Yeah,
darn cool.
and like what's funny for me is that, for example, a lot of the console people don't care at all about what's released on Apple Arcade, but when it comes to their console, it's like a second launch. So they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, there is this title I never heard about," even though
Hmm.
we released like 20 trailers at this point, I
Hmm.
think. So because every time we had an update on Apple Arcade, we released a new trailer with the new features, etc. So it's a different market, it's a different audience, and we can um, make sure to do the best possible work with each of them at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be all at the same time, especially when you're such a small company.
Absolutely. And now, the newest gamers are getting the most updated version of the game.
Yeah, they're getting all the updates we did before. That also includes all the playtesting, all the bug fixing. So they're getting the best version. They just had to wait a little bit longer, and I think it's a good deal in the end.
Yeah, and listeners, to anybody listening right now, I'm a couple hours into Oceanhorn 2, and I'm loving it. Absolutely fun. One of the things I do love about it, while it wears its like homage to Legend of Zelda on its sleeve, uh, to think the first thing players will notice, Tommaso, is you've got a sword, a shield, and a musket, and
Yeah.
that's a cool combination.
Yeah, it's funny. Like a couple of days ago, somebody has been sharing some impressions on the game. I don't know exactly where they were playing, maybe PS5, maybe Xbox, and they defined it as steampunk at Zelda. It's not 100% true. We're not going exactly steampunk, but there's technology that maybe you would see in something like Final Fantasy VII. So
Hmm.
it is a fantasy title, but it also involves technology. Oceanhorn itself is a machine.
Hmm.
So there is that kind of steampunky thing. Maybe it doesn't look like when you think steampunk, you imagine, I don't know, a armored dwarf with valves all over. Like we
Hmm.
don't have that kind of thing, but we do deal with technology, and I think that maybe sets it a bit apart from the Nintendo titles or
Yeah, one of the characters that we're introduced to fairly early on in the story is Jen, the
yes,
automata,
yes,
and it blew my mind because I'm like, I'm in this old sword and shield time. I'm hopping on my boat, island to island. I'm taking down monsters with my sword, and then there's like effectively a robot
yeah.
talking to me.
Yeah,
That's
he has
so
a,
cool.
well, you will see later in the story that he has a key role in the. You haven't played the first Oceanhorn.
Not in many years, and I don't think I ever finished it. I want to say I played it on Vita, but it's been a while. It's been a while.
Well, Jen has an important role in the saga, and definitely there is more to this automaton um, feature that we have. Like, it's not he's not the only one, and there is a reason why there are robots in the game,
Mhm.
which maybe we'll be able to explore in the future. Let's see.
I'm interested for sure because I just started. I got back from vacation and just started Oceanhorn 2, and I'm in. Like
Yeah,
I'm.
there's a certain deal of science fiction in there, which I don't think people understand when they first see the first trailer. Or
Mhm. The cool part to me is that even in the opening level, like or the opening island, I should say,
yeah,
there's a discoverability. There, you're rewarded for exploring. I found a dark crystal that I needed to shatter, and suddenly I can find, oh, this is a way to upgrade. And then there are ways to traverse by climbing vines and stuff that may not be there right in front of you, but a little bit of exploration is rewarded. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the design?
yeah, yeah. Actually, it's funny because we were discussing it this morning, and the guys told me that in the beginning, before I even joined the company, the initial part of the game was different. But they came to Outcast Island in the end, what you find now in the game,
Hmm.
because they wanted to make sure that within the first 10 minutes, you would have a good understanding of what the game was. And
Hmm.
in that really contained island, you have everything because you have a bit of exploration, you have a bit of fighting, you can try your gun if you are trying to shoot down the apples from the trees.
Hmm.
There is a little mystery to solve there in the cave, and then there is a boss battle. So you see everything that it's like a miniature version of what you're going to experience later on, just in the first few minutes. And in the beginning, it was starting a lot slower, and it took much longer to get to the action. But that's then they realize, okay, we need to change this because we want to give this strong initial impression to the players, and that's something we learn with this game, and well, it's something that we definitely will apply also on future games. That the beginning needs to start strong, and it needs to give you a good idea of what this game is about.
I really dig how, because I enjoyed the first Ocean Horn, but that was a more isometric view, kind of top-down esque angle. This is a third-person action game, which I think has allowed for uh, some really cool viewscapes, moments where you walk out on to the edge of a cliff and you look out and you see this world with brilliant lighting and water. Can you talk about the over-the-shoulder camera and style gameplay that we're now have in Oceanhorn 2?
Yeah, I think it's not only matter of presentation, it's also that it opens up a lot of gameplay options, because at this point you have a lot of verticality that you couldn't have with the isometric view. Now, there are definitely parts of the game where you need to traverse upwards,
Mm-hmm.
and enemies can come from below. They can come from up. They can come from behind you. And while in an isometric view, you would always see where the enemy is. Here, you also have to handle the camera and turn at the right time. We also have an enemy that requires you to do some little trick with the camera to be defeated, which is the ghost. Because if you look at it directly, it will disappear. So you need to figure out how to kind of fight it without looking at it. It's
Mm-hmm.
a little kind of puzzle to solve the first couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then, of course, the fact that it's 3D also allowed us to take advantage. The game was built on Unreal Engine 4 with a lot of custom work. For example, a lot of work has been done on the water of the game,
Mm-hmm.
that well, you can swim, you can also go around with a boat. That is not like the standard Unreal kind of water,
Mm-hmm.
the way Unreal handles water. So our graphic programmer at the time worked really hard to give a different feeling to the sea, because well, the game has if you play the first Oceanhorn, you know that at some point there's going to be islands
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. So water was a really important element in the game.
It to me it was really neat to see, or I guess, and I know we kind of touched on this. This was an Apple Arcade game. This was meant to be, or this could have been played on iPads and Apple TV, but on Series X. And I look out at that water and I see the reflections and stuff. The game is still absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, I think it's a testament to the work that was done on the mobile versions, and of course, on mobile it was scaling according to the platform. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I think some older model of Apple TV were struggling a bit on some sections,
Mm-hmm.
but then the most recent phones and iPads, they are so powerful that they can handle it without any problem. But then when you move to a console like Xbox Series S or Series X, then you can improve the resolution. You can improve the quality of some textures, etc. So take really advantage of the power of the consoles.
Have you guys been pleased with the ports and how it's running now on the more powerful consoles?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I think the most excited has been our creative director Heikki trying the game on the Steam Deck, and it works
Mm-hmm.
perfectly. So it's really nice to play on the Steam Deck. It's well, it resembles, of course, maybe more the Switch version because it's in portable mode, but it
Mm-hmm.
runs at 60 FPS, and it's so that's very nice to see.
Has to be like seeing your dream come to its best form, you know?
Well, like better hardware allows you to make the game like less compromises when it comes to resolution and that kind of stuff. So it's nice, yeah, of course.
Because you guys have come to so many platforms, uh, and you had a product that came out in 2019, then to Switch in 2020, now to consoles, PlayStation and Xbox in 2023. What's it like to go to those teams and say, "Hey, we've got this game, we're ready to bring it to this platform"? Is it as easy as, all right, we have a port studio, here we go, or are there complications or
So I'm
complexities?
not 100% sure of the process because our publisher has been talking mostly with the platforms.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I can say is that we it took a bit longer than we expected to get the game out on consoles because I think the process was already started during the pandemic.
Mm.
But because of the problems and the remote work, etc., there were many delays, and also somehow, I don't know if you noticed, but during the pandemic a lot of people started to play video games. So it
Hmm.
was one of the best possible period for video games because they were selling really well.
Hmm.
And despite all the disruption that happened in the outside world, video game, the industry was doing fairly well. But that also meant that many of the porting studios that we rely on were very buried in work. So
Hmm.
they had a lot of other titles to port, and so that's why it didn't come out as fast as we were hoping. But I think we're very happy with the result, and it probably was worth waiting a bit longer so to do it properly. Yeah, so I don't know if this answers your question.
It does. It does. And at the time that you and I are recording, we're like 3-4 days removed from the console launch. But I would have to think the Xbox and PlayStation audiences uh, are pleased and checking out the game. Yeah.
Yeah, we I think almost all the feedback we got is very positive, which I don't think it's something we took for granted because, as you said, this is a game that already came out on mobile, and some people don't want to play games that were first on mobile.
Hmm.
But uh, clearly, the title has merits that translate well on console. We
Hmm.
knew that from the Switch version, which did fairly well.
Hmm.
But of course, we are talking now about very powerful consoles, and still the game is doing great. Even though I don't know, Baldur's Gate 3 just released and everybody's crazy about that,
Hmm.
but we are seeing extremely positive feedback, which is very good.
That's awesome. We had some listeners write in a couple questions for you, and I think they are new to Oceanhorn 2 as well. Anubis was curious how long to beat Oceanhorn 2,
Yeah.
the main game, and then the main game plus like the sides and stuff. How long do you guys estimate?
Yeah, I need to think now because since I've been involved since the beginning, the game has grown or update after update. I
Hmm.
would say that maybe right now it's gonna take you about 18 to 20 hours to do the main story
Hmm.
with all the additions that we added, and maybe another extra 5 hours with side stuff. If
This
you
is a
add
meaty.
Tarok and you're really into Tarok, maybe a few hours more.
That is a meaty gameplay experience.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty long.
it's quite substantial now. Yeah.
You mentioned Tarok. I didn't bring it up in earlier on a card game.
Yeah, yeah, that's a card game. Like some episodes of Final Fantasy also had their own card games. To be honest, the Tarok has always been in the game because in the first release of the game, you could go in a couple of places. One of the caves in Arne, and if I remember correctly, the also in the tavern. There was a version, like a proto version of Tarok, but the rules weren't super clear and it was a bit random. So we decided, why don't we take this and try to make it into a proper mini game? And then Tarok was the result of that. So it's a 3x3 grid. You have this board where you are supposed to place cards, and they have an attack value, defense value. They attack in all directions. Some of the cards have a special attack direction, which does some special stuff. But the idea is that when you place a card on the board, if your card is stronger than the nearby cards, it flips them to your color. And at the end of the game, like the player which has the most card of their color wins. So that's the basic. And then in the game there are better cards and worse cards, and better players. Like you can play with almost everyone in the game, but some of them are stronger than others. So you can recognize them because they have a hat usually, and they can give you better cards if you beat them.
Very cool. Very cool. Listener Rithgod wrote in and he asks, I think, a poignant question that you kind of have already touched on a bit. A lot of big games coming out, this year, this holiday. How does Oceanhorn 2 kind of cut through the noise and fit in there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I don't know if I actually saw it on Twitter before before the recording.
Hmm.
I don't know if I have an exact answer. I think that the game can, um, in this case, take advantage of all the time it has been on Apple Arcade. People have been speaking about it. If you check, there are many reviews for the game out. You can check the reviews on Apple Arcade. You can check the reviews on websites. So, in a way, the fact that the game was already established and is not completely new, it's helping us because a lot of people were waiting for it. We don't have to, it's not like cold marketing call where you pick up the phone and try to call someone and sell them something. Like a lot of
Mhm.
people were waiting for it.
Mhm.
So I think that's our advantage in this case. And it's too early to see the sales numbers, but for what I can see, it's going fine. And reviews, as I mentioned, like the feedback we're getting is good, and that will contribute to more people trying it out. Like, when you see a good review on Steam, for example, then you're
Mhm.
more likely to check out the game or put it in your wish list or whatever you want to do with it.
Mhm.
So I don't think we have the same problem as other indie studios where they have this release and they don't have the marketing money to uh, impress it into the mind of people
Mhm.
beforehand for a long time. Um, I think we released the Oceanhorn 2 first in 2018, I want to say. So it's been like, what, 5 years of kind of marketing in the back of your head.
Mhm.
Um, but some other titles don't have this luxury. So for them, the current market, I have to say, it's complicated. And this is something we discuss all the time because Oceanhorn 2, we had this deal with Apple. This is not necessarily um, what we'll do with all our games.
Mhm.
So when we discuss like about the possible new projects, it's like, okay, how do we actually get it to the players? How do we sell it? How do we make sure that people notice when there are all these releases? This is a very long discussion. I think we could have a separate podcast about this.
Mhm.
Um, it is certainly a time of many changes. So there's a Game Pass on one side,
Mhm.
which offers some answer there, but also if you're not in the Game Pass, then do people wait to buy? I can give you an example of personal
Sure.
gaming. So I have a small kid. I have all the consoles. I can get to play only when the kid is sleeping, which means basically in the evening.
Mhm.
And even there, like I'm a bit tired, so sometimes I don't play that much as I want. Many new games. Just bought Final Fantasy 16. I have a God of War Ragnarok to play, Elden Ring to finish,
Mhm.
the new Zelda to finish. So many games, and I don't have the time for it. So now there's this release of The Expanse, the Telltale
Telltale game, yeah.
series based on the TV series and series of books of The Expanse. I really like the series. I really want to play it, but then I'm wondering like, I don't have time to play this, so should I
Mhm.
buy now or do I just wait until I actually have time? And by the time I will have time, it will be much cheaper, and it means that in a way I'm not in the first wave of customers,
Mhm.
which is not great for the Telltale studios, even though I would want to play. But there's
Right.
so much offer right now that the problem is that studios should start selling time to people rather than games.
Mhm.
So it's a difficult situation because I think most of the people that have actually the income to buy a lot of games, they might not have the time to play them, and then you have the opposite situation where the people that have time to play it, maybe students, they usually don't have so much income to buy everything that comes out. So
Mhm.
it's a complicated situation, and I think we're gonna see some changes in the market in the next few years. It seems quite clear to me that triple A's are becoming more and more untenable.
Mhm.
But that's just my personal opinion. It's not the opinion of the studio. It's not. So from what I can see now, when you make a triple A, you need to be absolutely sure that it sells very, very, very well because
Mhm.
they're so expensive. They're basically Hollywood movies,
Yeah.
and you cannot afford a triple A not to sell. So I don't know if you check what comes out this October, it's just insane. I'm sure that some
Mhm.
studios will just hurt themselves because there's not enough players and enough money to buy everything that comes out that month on day one.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, and then I stop. Um, there is this thing where you can segment the players. So you know that a certain amount of players will buy this on day one, no matter what, and then they will buy on after a month, and then they will buy after 3 months, and then they will buy after a year. So in a way, you can set the initial price to reflect this. And I think this is also one of the reasons why some games, when they come out now on day one, they cost 89 euros instead, or $89 instead of what they costed just a few years ago, which was what 69 or
Hmm.
so. They are kind of taking into account the fact that they will have to drop the price to get people in. um, that's my personal impression, because I was really surprised when they raised some, especially price for digital releases,
Hmm.
so steeply. But it's pretty clear that this is what they need to do, because otherwise people don't come in immediately.
Hmm. That's interesting and relevant, I think, given the market that gamers are having to decide both time and money in.
Yeah, there's so much offering of such good quality. It's really hard to pick. Like, even just the list of games that I gave you that I have started and I'm not finishing, like
Hmm.
every one of those games is amazing. And should I just focus on one and not check the others out for 6 months because I don't have time? Like, it's difficult, Well, especially
Right.
when you are in this market. I kind of need to know what's going on, because we are making games, so
Hmm.
we discuss games and we check them as references. But yeah, like, such high quality and so much offer.
Hmm.
It's funny to say it, but it's a problem.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I will unabashedly encourage listeners to play Oceanhorn 2. I'm really enjoying it, guys. It's a wonderful addition to your
I
Xbox
mean,
console.
like, if I can try to sell the game,
Yeah.
first of all, the entry price is much more moderate compared to some of these big titles, and also this is a game that will not necessarily take 6 months to complete. So
Hmm.
if you want something that you can finish in maybe a couple of weeks, between a big open world and another big open world, I think this would
Hmm.
be a perfect title, especially if you like that kind of feeling from old Zelda, where you have a dungeon, where
Hmm.
you have some fights, etc. Because uh, now the Tears of the Kingdom, I've been playing, I've been playing 20 past hours, and I haven't even opened the whole map, and it's like, when I even start in this game,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, I don't even know how much there is to see, and I played already 20 hours. And sometimes it's a bit overwhelming, Sometimes
Sure.
I do want smaller games, and I think Oceanhorn would be perfect for that.
I'm fully inclined to agree and support and encourage because I really enjoy the game. Um, a question that you don't have to answer, but it's fun. You teased earlier studios working on other projects. Is there more Oceanhorn in the future?
Look, the thing is this: like, when you will play Oceanhorn 2, you will realize that between the second one and the first one,
Hmm.
and well, if you play even Oceanhorn Chronos Dungeon, there are a lot of things that are open to be explored.
Hmm.
So that was done on purpose, just to make sure that if we want to do more Oceanhorn,
Hmm.
there's the possibility for us to pick a specific era. There's almost 1,000 years between the first one and the second one, so there's a lot of story there that we a lot of lore that we can feel there. In a way, we have left many questions unanswered, because there's the possibility that we will have the opportunity to answer them. That said, every game is self-contained, so you won't miss much if you just play one, and you don't have to say, "Oh no, I wait until they develop 10 before I start."
Hmm.
Um, so Oceanhorn is our main saga. There's a lot in that world that we have not explored.
Hmm.
I think there might be more in the future. That said, we're working on a project. It's an Unreal 5 project. I don't think we're gonna hear about it for a bit longer.
Hmm.
Not this year, probably not next year. Uh, so yeah, as I mentioned, like, the studio hasn't done only Oceanhorn. The first game was a racing game of
Hmm.
everything. So, like, we can try also different things. But I guess you have to wait and see to see what's coming.
I like it. It's a good answer and a fun one and a good place to end. Tommaso De Benetti, I appreciate your time so much today. Thank you for joining me.
No problem. Thank you for having me.